Hey, welcome back to BroBots in Disguise.
Hey.
I'm Frankie, still.
And I'm Hayden, still.
Yeah. And last time, we went way over time talking about just 2 episodes.
Like, only about 2 hours. Like,
Yes.
we're good.
So we're going to talk about the second 2 episodes in this episode, which is not really an episode, but a part 2 to the previous episode's part 1.
It's episode 3.5, we'll
There you
say.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
It's a reissue. It's a repaint.
Transformers is well versed in those.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to the first part, please go back and listen to that because it will be tying into what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
This is the second part of our planes, dinosaurs, and automobiles episode.
Basically. If the aerial bots were involved, it would make a lot more sense. But
How about Astro Train? Then we could really make the reference.
Oh, yeah, plane.
Makes sense.
Planes,
Anyway.
trains, automobiles, and Dinobots.
Who doesn't love a Dinobot?
Yeah.
Anyway, so last time we discussed Fire in the Sky and S.O.S. Dinobots.
Yeah.
So now we're going to do the follow-up episodes to those 2 episodes, which it's kind of funny that they air in this sort of haphazard way where you've got
Right.
a Skyfire episode, a Dinobot episode, a Skyfire episode, and then a Dinobot episode.
Yeah.
Which it makes sense, like, you know, kind of spacing those out a little bit, but also it makes more sense if you, like, you know, have the second Skyfire episode right after the first Skyfire episode to explain that they didn't just leave him there frozen in the ice.
Right.
Unless the Autobots are just that cold. Sorry. Alright, anyway.
You could also say that with them being spaced out like this, it implies some negative space in between.
Yeah.
To where there's like a little bit of breathing room, and it makes some stuff in War for the Dinobots make a little bit more sense, I would think. But for Fire on the Mountain, I think they definitely should have
Right.
at least reworked it to where it's like, you know, okay, do whatever you can to get him out of the ice, and then this one is like, oh, we finally broke through.
Right. It took them that long. So when they break him back out, and we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, when they
True.
break him out, but when they break him out of the ice, do they uncover it just off screen, the green crystal pops back up and the whole world freezes again? So the whole episode plays over again in like 30 seconds.
Caught in an infinite loop.
Nah. As we see, Wheeljack is able to cap the problem in this episode. Maybe he just puts a cap on that problem as well.
Put a cap on it. That seems to solve a lot of issues.
Yeah. Maybe that's why his invention works at the end of this episode.
True.
So, in case you haven't figured it out by now, we are starting with Fire on the Mountain.
Episode 9.
Yes. I'm going to run through bits and pieces of the recap as we discuss it. So, Starscream and Thundercracker fight Brawn and Trailbreaker as they steal some steel for Megatron's new weapon. And don't worry, that joke comes up a lot. Cannon, using a crystal from a temple in Peru that summons the power of the Earth's core for massive firepower. It's too powerful and melts the weapon.
Basically.
So let's discuss this part of the episode.
So, I do like this, like, first little chunk of it that's just sort of a heist.
Yeah.
It's not really a heist, but it's just, you know, standard Autobot Decepticon fare of Decepticons steal something and Autobots chase after them. But we get this feels like the Brawn highlight episode.
Yes.
Because,
he gets a lot to do in this episode.
yeah.
And I was thinking at first that it's kind of funny that the Autobots just happen to be wherever the Decepticons are, unless you take into consideration that we only see the episodes where the Autobots and Decepticons face off. There's probably hundreds of times where the Decepticons just straight up steal something. In fact, there's plenty of episodes where the Decepticons already have something that they've got that the Autobots weren't there for. But it also makes sense that with how many more Autobots there are than Decepticons, that it's plausible they may just happen to be in the same place at the same time.
Right. And there's a line here from Trailbreaker when the Decepticons get away with their steel beams that has always been
I know where you're going.
A point
with
of
this.
contention in my brain because I'm just trying to figure out what he says.
Yes.
He is apparently saying hexagonal nuts. like,
Right, like
a hex, a nut that is shaped like a hexagon
yes.
that goes onto machinery.
Right.
It does not sound like that.
Yes.
It sounds like heck, comma, sagging old nuts. And I never knew how to feel about it.
Heck, sagging old nuts!
It's the delivery combined with the vocoder, combined with the garbled audio, and it made for a very interesting viewing experience of like, what did he say?
I always thought it was a great... I actually say this sometimes in real life, just because it's so silly.
Yeah. I think I've heard you say that a few times too.
Yeah. just once in a while.
Which is weird because it supported my earlier inclination that Trailbreaker was old.
Yeah.
Because it kind of sounds like something Cup would say, but...
Yeah, it does.
You know, he's apparently a young guy, and ribs ironhide about being old, so... Yeah,
but now we know that if you have a good socket wrench, you can take a transformer apart.
True.
Speaking of taking things apart, Starscream's not so scientific in this episode. He used to be... Maybe the war has worn down his scienciness. But he's just like, yeah, this steel will work, and Thundercracker's like, no, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah. Well, I do like that this kind of begins and sort of ends, honestly, but it starts the characterization of the trio of Seekers and their dynamic with each other.
Right.
Where Skywarp is just kind of an agent of chaos. Starscream is, Starscream. But Thundercracker is kind of in a gray area where he's
a little dubious.
His loyalty is a little fluctuating.
Yeah.
And in here, it's more of like he's just a thug.
Yeah.
And just doesn't like being double crossed and doesn't like being put in positions where he's like embarrassed.
Right.
But it gets expounded in later iterations of the character to where he's like full on like does not have a strong allegiance with the Decepticons and sometimes goes over to the Autobot side or also is like invested in like Earth culture and stuff.
Right. It's actually something that comes from his earliest character bios. I believe it says something along the lines of he's not entirely sure about the Decepticon cause.
Yeah.
It was he doubts the Decepticons' methods or something like that.
Right.
It's in his original bio, but it doesn't get taken up very strongly. It does sometimes, but not very strongly.
Right.
Which will be good fuel for us to discuss which Seeker became Cyclonus and which Seeker became Scourge.
True.
When we get there. But we'll talk about that way later.
The funny thing is that they're getting this steel to make like a turret. But the turret is going to be fueled by the molten energy from the Earth's core, which we get the return of Big Green Crystal from Fire in the Sky.
I cannot help but wonder if it's somehow connected to the Big Green Crystal from Fire in the Sky.
Yeah.
Like, is there just all these crystal shafts coming up over around the Earth?
Right.
In different places that creates these vents from the Earth's core.
Yeah. If we look at a single episode in isolation, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But 2 episodes that have the same thing, then it's like, okay, we can assume that the biology of the Earth is different than...
Right.
Or the geology
of the Earth is
different.
Which really, once again plays into things like Beast Wars with the seeded energon crystals, and so maybe this is one of the seeded energon crystals.
Could be.
It's just a different color.
It's green because it
looks like a crystal
shaft of energy shooting up into it.
Yeah. And then in later incarnations, like Transformers Prime, there's a reason energon keeps showing up on Earth, and there's different types of energon.
Yeah.
And then in various other continuities, like Energon!
Right.
There's Energon, just like that's a primordial substance or something.
Yeah, and it's also like in the Earth and like unique to the Earth in some ways. And
so we're already, I know we discussed this at some length in our previous episode, but yeah, we are seeing this like accidental continuity
Right.
between generations of Transformers.
At least a note was passed in between episodes.
There's another episode in season 2. I forget what they're called. I want to call them dilithium crystals, but I know that's from Star Trek.
Yeah.
Where Starscream discovers these hyper energized crystals.
Yeah, it's like
that blow
radioactive
stuff up.
to Transformers and
Yeah.
super volatile.
And we'll probably bring these green crystals up and Beast Wars crystals when we get to that.
Yeah. If we remember.
If we remember when we get to that episode. But anyway.
Curiously.
Like the show, we may forget.
Yeah. Curiously, though, Soundwave is the one who's, like, pointed them towards, like, the Incan legends of the, what do they refer to it as? It's like the spirit of the mountain or something like that.
The ancient gods.
The ancient gods,
yes.
Yeah. But it's like, oh yeah, according to the legends, then
and
it
I
should
find
be
that
here.
fascinating that they don't try to like say the ancient gods never existed or like science is more important than religion.
I believe
anything.
the throwaway
Which there is an
explanation
episode.
just the ancient gods knew many things.
Yeah, they said. She says the ancient
ones knew many things.
The ancient ones knew many things, but she also says the ancient gods are history. What happened to the ancient gods?
Yeah.
Were they Cybertronians?
Oh.
And we'll get it. There's another episode that actually kind of makes me uncomfortable later in season 2, but we'll probably discuss a lot of this type of stuff later on.
A plot twist, it's just IDW Shockwave.
Yeah, exactly.
Screwing around with mythology. But also that, Megatron is... discounts most human stuff, but
yes.
If it's coming from his surveillance officer, he's more willing to believe it.
Yeah, and especially if it has something to do with a power source.
Right.
Like we've discussed this a little bit at the beginning of the previous Skyfire episode, that the Autobots like to learn about human culture for the sake of learning about humans.
Yeah.
The Decepticons learn about human culture only for what they can gain from it.
Exactly.
And and in this case, once again, Soundwave is listening to hearsay and legends.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a credible source, but apparently he's right.
Yeah. It goes to show that he casts a wide net when he's on the job.
Yeah. So I have a question. When Brawn and Trailbreaker report the missing steel to base, Optimus immediately just turns to Bumblebee and says, any ideas, Bumblebee? Why is Bumblebee suddenly his main advisor here? Was it because that he made such a valiant show in the previous episode?
Oh,
I mean, he didn't really do anything. He just disobeyed his orders, picked up Spike, and then told Wheeljack that they had
Any
problems.
ideas? Distrustworthy Autobot.
Yeah. Why does he just immediately turn to Bumblebee? I mean, I get it. In some episodes, in some series, he's an old friend and whatnot.
Well, he's eking
like
his way into...
the meme about Optimus giving him a hug and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway.
My boy.
Yeah. So,
then they
also,
get the Sky Spy up in the air and
they send the Sky
out.
Spy on the Decepticons, and then it gets blown up by the super weapon.
Yeah.
Right?
It's funny that it's just a stationary turret.
Yeah.
And Megatron's, like, for whatever reason, he decided to fixate on just a stationary turret being the main way that he performs conquest at the moment. But it's a
makes
test.
sense, though, because it shows when he uses it that the energy column comes up out of the temple and into the bottom of the turret.
Yeah.
Which is where they put the green crystal, right?
Right.
So the green crystal is more like a lens funneling that energy.
Yeah.
So in this case, that's why it has to be stationary, because otherwise they'd have to put it like way up. It'd have to always be above that shaft of energy, right? It'd be no different if they put the turret over the top of the green crystal shaft in the Skyfire episode.
Yeah, true. But
Megatron rarely tries the same plan twice.
Yeah. You gotta give him props for
maybe
ingenuity.
there's just like an army of Autobot drones that we never see, that the Autobots just place wherever Megatron tried to plan last time so that he's not able to go back there.
They lock down the facility. It could be like the Decepticons in the Armada game, where it's just an armada of androids and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we do see generic Transformers later on in the series, but most of them are dead.
Yeah.
But maybe it's the Sentry Monitor.
Right.
That thing that Red Alert builds in his episode.
Oh, yeah.
The Sentry drone. Maybe that's why the Decepticons never go back. But Starscream doesn't know about that either. Anyway, way off topic. We'll get back to this when we get to that episode.
Yeah, it's funny that they get the steel from the facility in the Peruvian village, and then
is the steel mill they steal from in the first place above in Peru?
It could be.
Because they show them going to another steel mill. Is it the same steel mill, or is it a different
It'd
one?
be really funny if it was.
Yeah, Megatron did just prove me and do the same thing twice. But that would make sense why they send the Sky Spy to go over Peru.
Right. It might be a different one. But I do like that, Thundercracker is skeptical about this working. Yes. Because Starscream was just like, smash and grab, get some steel.
Yeah.
Whatever works. It melts from the energy that shoots through it that they use to blow up the Sky Spy, which in turn just alerts the Autobots that the Decepticons are there.
Yes.
But Starscream immediately pins it on Thundercracker, and he's like, you imbecile! You got me defective steel! And so he gets undermined, which, if you view his, sort of, not treachery streak, but his, his willingness to play both angles and stuff in this episode as a single one-off, which it kind of is in G1.
Yeah.
It's
then
just
getting back.
Yeah, it feels self-contained.
Workplace rivalry.
Right. It's just like, hey man, you threw me under the bus, so it plants the seeds for that.
Right.
Which I like, but it just doesn't really get explored past this.
Yes.
Which is unfortunate.
So at this point, meanwhile, the Autobots dig up Skyfire and send him with Brawn and Windcharger to check on the Decepticons, which... Did Brawn go all the way back to base, or is he just did he go to Peru to pick up Brawn and then just fly him around the side of the mountain?
Yeah. Well, from what we see in this one, they're kind of like a super commando team.
Yeah.
They are definitely one-man army material.
Yeah.
Brawn, Windcharger,
and we've seen that
Skyfire,
before in another episode where... I think it's the one where Starscream's taken over the Decepticons after Megatron goes through the space bridge, and Brawn just is the backup to Windcharger.
Yeah.
No, not Windcharger. Cliffjumper.
Right.
And he
is the backup.
Yeah.
But so
I have a note here that says elephant in the room, but we've discussed at length already Skyfire just being dug up,
just
haphazardly.
Alive.
Yeah. Let's just accept it and move on at this point, because we've already beat this dead horse.
Yeah.
To use another animal metaphor. Speaking of animal metaphors, Sideswipe says, it's cold enough up here to freeze the ailerons off a titanium moose bot.
Oh, I think he says the ailerons.
Ailerons. That might make more sense, because on one hand, the ailerons, I just thought that it was like the air molecules or something. It's going to freeze the air. But, alright, we get another reference to Cybertronian wildlife that we never see. A titanium moose bot with ailerons, which are part of an airplane's wing. So these moose have wings!
Or the antlers are the ailerons.
Ooh, I like that.
So it just flies from its head.
I like that.
So a little bit of Cybertronian biology.
Yep.
Titanium moose bot possibly flies with the antlers on its head, which are jet ailerons.
I would love it if they transformed into jets. It was just like Ravage, he turns into a cassette and a Jaguar. There's no robot mode. Maybe and I know that Ravage and the cassettes are their own, which we'll get into that in later episodes probably.
Oh,
but
man.
They're sometimes their own character, and sometimes they're treated more like an animal.
Right.
But I would love just if one of Blaster's cassettes was a moose with wings.
And it's got rockets, yeah. And it's got laser eyes, yeah. And it's a ninja, yeah.
Or just like a moose that turned into an airplane.
Yeah.
I love it. That's some Beast Machine stuff there for you.
Oh, boy. So, Wheeljack and Sideswipe, they dig him out, and he's alive, and he's just like, do you have enough energy to transform? And he's like, yeah, I think so. Completely ignoring that he was, like, near death when he went into the ice.
And then they just immediately send him on a mission.
Yeah, they're just like, all right, head out. We're just like, okay. And then he just knows where the Autobot base is.
Well, they presumably ride with him.
I guess.
And maybe he gets repaired at the base before they go out.
Fair.
And I do like this sort of like Autobots are on separate missions. You know, it kind of helps with that military.
Yeah. Feels kind of G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Global adventures.
Right. So then he drops off Brawn and Windcharger. Just they're supposed to spy on the Decepticons, and instead Brawn and Windcharger just jump Soundwave and Starscream. Or Megatron.
I love this sort of like A-team dynamic that Brawn, Windcharger, and Skyfire have, where it's like getaway driver, Brawn's the muscle, Windcharger's the tactician.
Right, and it makes sense too because they're the mini-bots, so they can fit inside him.
Right, and they, like you said, they just jump Soundwave and Megatron. They're like, get him!
Yeah.
And because Soundwave and Megatron are just like flying in robot mode. As Decepticons are wont to do. And they get onto their backs and just pilot them into a wall. Yes. Which is grand.
Yep. And then we have another Brown. We have another Brawn versus Soundwave. Browning is a different character.
This apparently...
we'll get to him.
My memory does not recall many of these encounters, but
apparently there's a tally on TF Wiki of all the
Brawn Soundwave matchups and stuff, and this one is Brawn 1, Soundwave 0.
Of course. Brawn often wins.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. He gets shot in the ear, and he says, that's murder on my audio receptors. Yeah. And then Windcharger just gives up. He gets hit once, and he's like, I guess we should leave.
I am in pain.
I mean, I guess it makes... Like, was their plan just to stall them so the other Autobots could get there?
I guess.
But Skyfire also picks up the other Autobots.
Yeah. Curiously, though, Windcharger is one of the Autobots who has, like, a specific, quote-unquote, superpower.
Yeah, he's
which
magnetic.
is magnetism.
He has a magnetic personality.
Brawn doesn't have any other than just being like invincible and just being built different.
Unless you shoot him in the shoulder.
Yeah. Alas. But funnily enough, here
he gets shot all over the place.
He gets shot a lot, but he never
not when
he never gets hit in gun mode.
Yeah, when Megatron's in gun mode.
Right.
And that's what kills him in the movie.
Right.
And he is visibly scared of Megatron in gun mode when he turns into gun mode.
Right.
Which kind of, maybe he can use his fusion cannon in gun mode.
Yeah. It's also fun seeing Megatron who he trusts his gun mode to.
Yeah, usually Soundwave, but sometimes Starscream.
Occasionally Skywarp for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But it just kind of depends on who's there in the moment.
It really does.
A lot of times it's always really cool seeing Soundwave wield Megatron.
Yeah.
And because it's the most loyal, and
I think that in video game terms, that's a good nerf for Megatron, that he has to be used by somebody else in gun mode. He's like the most powerful. He wants to be the most powerful being in the universe or whatever, but he can't use his gun mode on his own.
Yeah.
Even though Shockwave can.
The one who wants use his all of the power for himself has to rely on others to use his power.
And you would think that would be a good arc for a character, right? But Megatron just consistently is like, no. I refuse to learn anything by what Teletran has cursed me to become. Maybe that was Teletran's plan.
Could be,
maybe it's like, I'm gonna nerf this guy. Maybe it wasn't just like, it was obligated to repair everybody, but anybody they put there, but like it knew who Megatron was and was like,
could be. It's also, if you wanted to nerf him, you would just make him turn into like a Walkman or something like that.
yeah, that's true. Or an actual Nerf gun, as he turned into in Transformers Classics line, I believe.
Yes.
He looks just like one of the Nerf guns.
He doesn't. The Nerf
He doesn't
Maverick.
operate like the Nerf gun, but he looks just like the Nerf
Right.
gun, which is also owned by Hasbro.
It looks like straight out of the Energon toy line, just green, translucent, everything.
Yeah.
But
anyway, moving on.
So I love this little like rescue op thing that they pull with Skyfire.
Yeah.
Megatron and Soundwave and Megatron have Brawn cornered on a cliff.
Yes.
And they're like shooting up at him.
And
Windcharger's being chased by Laserbeak.
yes.
And he's driving on the top of the cliff towards Brawn.
Yes.
Skyfire is, I almost call him Skywarp. Skyfire's
no,
flying in from above.
Yeah.
And they're like timing it out where it's like, we only get one shot at this. And it's like 3, 2, 1. And Windcharger, in car mode, grabs Brawn and like gets him
launches
on the hood.
off the cliff.
Launches off the cliff right as Megatron is shooting the cliff. And then they're in the air and Skyfire like scoops him up with his hanger. Phenomenal.
It's a fun little tense acrobatic moment, sort of thing. Roll 20 on acrobatics, but if you think about it in the long run, none of that was necessary. Brawn could have moved at any moment.
Yeah.
Brawn could have transformed and drove off the cliff.
But it's also Megatron's gun.
Yeah, it's timing and stuff,
It was pretty cool. I liked it.
If you don't think about it too hard, it's fantastic. It's fun.
Yeah.
If you'd start thinking about it too hard, it's like, well, they could have, just could have done something else.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on in the episode, the rest of the Autobots show up as the Decepticons steal more steel for the weapon, and Skyfire gets shot and captured at the temple. Skyfire gets shot and captured a lot.
He does.
Also, Prime, when he picks up the other Autobots, or drops them off, Prime pats his nose cone while he's still in jet mode, which turns into his stomach, or
his belly,
area,
and also lower pelvic area.
So he's just patting his belly.
Yeah.
He's giving him a belly pat, like he's a dog or something.
Yeah. So like, yeah, good boy.
You could read something dirty into this, but we're not going to discuss that.
It's also funny that Skyfire, all of them, they went to investigate why did Sky Spy get blown up,
right?
And then they get there and then have a little rust about.
Yeah.
And then come back and they're like, yep, they're there. And then we'll go all the way back. Skyfire's burning through some gas.
Those Peruvians, they just, they like to shoot Autobot satellites out of the sky all the time. So we had to make sure it was Decepticons this time.
Peru was not involved in the global alliance that teams up with the Autobots.
Speaking of Peru and their economic state, there's this hilarious shot where a dirt road just becomes metal.
Yeah, so there's a little
steel mill
village.
Yeah.
And then a little mountain path.
Yeah.
And it just crossfades into the whole the steel mill.
The steel mill.
Where it's it's not just hard cut off into metal floor. Yeah. It's just
the dirt road, it just becomes steel.
Yeah.
It's this looks like something the Decepticons would do.
Right.
Maybe this episode comes after the Key to Vector Sigma.
Oh, there we go. Continuity be done.
We gotta explain why this road is made out of metal.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why the steel is finally strong enough with Megatron's alchemy. So he just invents glowing metal to some sort of alloy to build a better weapon with. But just as the Autobots show up and Prime just rams him through a wall, he bursts through the doors and just slams him into the wall. It's great.
What's fun is
he just turns around and is like, huh?
Well, two things about this is that, one, I like that Megatron, there's a lot of sequences where Megatron is kind of the idea guy.
Yeah.
And Soundwave and a few others in the Decepticons are more of they figure out the practical way of making a reality.
Right.
And in this one where, he just invents a new alloy.
Yeah.
And stuff. We'll see it all over this season.
I do like the shot where they're loading it up into Skywarp.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I always like little detail shots like that where they're just like loading, a transformer is using their alt mode for something,
right?
Other than
actually using it for the intended purpose of transport of some
well,
kind.
I don't think F-15 fighter jets are used to transport goods very often. But since they don't have a pilot, they could just put it in the cockpit.
True.
But instead he puts it in the like hollow chassis.
Where the, I guess, engines would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Well, it's in between the engines.
Yeah, something like that. But as the Autobots are approaching, Optimus and Brawn are driving side by side, and Brawn's like, I got a score to settle with Megatron, and Optimus just kind of like chuckling and saying, welcome to the club, let's get him! Like, it just feels like a bunch of kids, like, gonna go beat up a bully.
Just on the playground.
Most iterations of Optimus and Megatron played out as like, brothers.
Serious brothers in arms turned enemies.
Yeah, it's tragedy. And it's like,
yeah.
oh, we could have been bros, man, and stuff. And then this one's just like, oh man, I'm gonna beat him up. I'm going to shove him into a wall and take his lunch money.
Yeah, and then I love, speaking of taking lunch money, Brawn steals Megatron's gun.
Yeah.
I love how big it is compared to Brawn. And the funny thing, the Masterpiece Optimus Prime comes with a little Megatron, right?
Yeah.
A little Megatron gun. The sight of which becomes Megatron's gun in robot mode in his other incarnations.
Right.
Can detach. I had this little, like, cyber class, whatever it was called at the time, this little Brawn character.
Little Brawn.
Little Brawn. And that cannon almost fit the same scale.
Oh, nice.
As shown in this episode. So I just had him hold that sometimes.
Sweet. Yeah, that's really fun because he...
And I believe there is another toy of Brawn that came out recently that has a cannon that looks similar to Megatron's cannon.
Oh, cool.
But anyway, back to the episode.
It's a spotlight moment on Brawn.
It really
being
is.
Just
the whole episode
greatest.
Is. Yeah.
But him like shooting
Brawn
it and then
goat.
just like falling over.
Yeah, it just knocks him over.
Just like, oh!
I love that. Yep.
Um.
So this is the first time that... Or no, this is the second time that we see the girl who mentions the ancient gods and the power source at the Peru temple. She is a local girl who is not named in the episode, but according to TF Wiki, her name is Luisa.
Yeah.
And
it's a very culturally flat interpretation of Peru, but
well, not
there's
necessarily.
not really any time to explore.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very short episode. The focus is on selling you toys. So like they don't spend a whole lot. Yeah, it's just a set piece,
right?
Really. I don't know how culturally sensitive it is, especially considering that this takes place in the 80s. So Peru then is not going to be Peru now.
Right. Transformers also hasn't had the best history of depicting certain countries and stuff.
Yeah. So we're
especially in the 80s. So.
But yeah, so we're going to just kind of breeze past all of that because that's not our field of expertise to discuss. Right. Though I do think it is interesting that they went back to Peru in the most recent live action movie.
True.
The
Rise of the Beasts.
Yes.
They got a cool little spotlight.
Yeah. And they spent a little more time there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really more focusing on the Indiana Jones aspect of this, ancient temple, ancient artifacts, powerful artifact sort of thing. But she is going to end up being like a guide.
Yeah. Which
makes me wonder, first of all, she's just at this steel mill, right? Is she one of the workers there? Or like, did she just go there to watch the fireworks?
Well, we see some of the workers and they're in like full safety gear and
right,
stuff.
So and she's still in her...
she's in a rather large OSHA violation.
Yeah, I don't think they have OSHA there.
Probably not.
But anyway, so she's just in her civilian clothes and her giant Emperor's New Groove earrings.
But Bumblebee and Spike rescue her from the battle, as it's like raging and stuff, and she just like info dumps on them.
Yeah, so instead of Obi-Wan's concern that we've picked up another pathetic life form, this one is very useful.
She's a good repository of knowledge, but
yes.
She leads Bumblebee. Is Skyfire? No, Skyfire at this point has been
Skyfire's been shot and put in not exactly a prison, but just laid. He's resting underneath the temple.
Yeah,
because he's
double everybody back to that scene,
right. Everybody is attacking the steel mill and the other Decepticons, but Starscream and Thundercracker have been left to guard the weapon, and Skyfire sneaks up on them. Thundercracker decides to use this as an opportunity to let Starscream take some heat for once by just letting Skyfire destroy it, but Starscream calls him a putrid traitor and shoots Skyfire and blackmails Thundercracker.
Which is so funny because putrid traitor pales in comparison to Thundercracker just calling everyone geeky all the time.
Yeah, for some reason he's like, hey, if I let you destroy this, then that geeky Starscream will get...
It kind of codifies him to me as like the high school bully or something, like a Flash Thompson type of character. But, so then Starscream calls him a putrid traitor and nails Skyfire and threatens Thundercracker into backing down.
Oh, and while the Decepticons are retreating, Megatron causes an avalanche with his own arm cannon, which it's like, if your arm cannon is that powerful, why do you need this super turret thing? Yeah. Because he basically causes this avalanche which destroys the top of a mountain, and then when he repairs his cannon and he levels the top of a mountain. Didn't you just do that with your arm cannon? Yeah. But anyway, Optimus Prime's brilliant solution to any peril is just to shoot it a bunch.
Yeah.
So the Autobots stop a avalanche by shooting it a lot.
Yeah. And they save the village. And
yeah. And then Bumblebee and Spike, with the local woman, Louisa, travel to the temple, and she takes them on a secret path into the heart of the temple, which I guess she's a bit of an adventurer or something if she's been sneaking around there, unless that's just like her job or something.
Like, this is where the cool kids hang out.
Yeah, that's where they all go to smoke weed.
This is where they drive Juanita up to the temple and then hang out.
Right.
Oh, man. But
anyway.
They get in, and I believe there's a scene where Megatron gets the alloy and forges a new cannon and tests it out, and it actually works.
Yeah. This time it's purple, not gray.
I do love the fact that he says, like, it's perfection incarnate, and it's just purple metal.
Yeah.
So it explains a lot about Transformers, like, technology.
Well, the Decepticon stuff is purple.
Yeah.
Like, they have a whole base that's just purple.
I think he's just really into the color purple, honestly.
He's one of those guys, you know that meme where it's like, people who have a favorite color are like, yeah, this is my favorite color, and once in a while it might show up in their wardrobe or something,
Yeah.
But people who like purple, it's their entire life.
Purple, it's the fish from the Krusty Krab.
SpongeBob.
Hey, is that one purple? Purple is my favorite color.
We actually knew somebody in college who perfectly exemplified this trope. Yes. Because everything about her was purple.
Purple to a T. But yeah, they make it purple, and I blew up a mountain to demonstrate its power, which he already did.
Right. So Bumblebee mentions that the energy flow from the Earth's core up to the crystal is as much as a whole bunch of, I forget the exact number, but he compares it to Cybertronic energon smelters. And I was wondering if maybe that was something like that generator looking thing that he and Wheeljack crawled out of with the little energy rods at the beginning of the first episode.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of a leap.
maybe those are the things that.
It's just
power the
me
Cybertronic
grasping at
Energon smelters.
Yeah, it's just me grasping at strings.
But yeah, this is where Luisa is that
Luisa?
Luisa
Yeah.
says,
the Ancient Ones knew many things.
yeah, it's just like, listen, man, I don't know what to tell you other than just a precursor race. And
Right,
whatnot.
exactly. Which, maybe they learned from the Beast Wars character.
Or just Cybertronians.
Well, I mean, that's
in
a little
general.
far back, because...
Yeah. I also don't think they were in Peru
Right.
at any point.
No.
But they get to Skyfire and they start, like, Spike starts fixing him up, which kind of starts a cool trope of, like, the human can fix Cybertronians pretty well because of their small size, and
yeah, they can crawl inside and do internal surgeries very easily.
Yeah,
I do
it's
like
kinda
that.
neat.
But then again, you have human-sized Transformers,
True.
So
But I like that
just imagine that you're laying down on an operating table and this like person the size of your foot shows up,
like comes
and
up
starts
someone
operating
comes up to
on
your
you.
shin.
Yeah. like not even little people. I'm talking about like Gulliver's Travels people start working on you.
But it makes sense, and it's also kind of adds to the robotness of them, where it's like parts are interchangeable, and
yeah.
I've always
And
loved
that's a
the
lot.
trope of human mechanic is able to team up with the Autobots super well.
Yeah. That's in the comics. That's in the original cartoon, and I feel like
Colby and Cybertron.
Yeah, Colby and almost all of the series have at least one human who knows something that can help I mean, most of the humans are generally supposed to be pretty helpful to the Autobots, but like, even if it's not a mechanic, maybe they are computer savvy or something like that.
Like Raph and Transformers Prime.
Right, Chip. But yeah, anyway, so they fix up Skyfire, and he joins the final battle at the temple and destroys the weapon as the Autobots make their way there to the top to fight the Decepticons.
All the way
up
to
there.
the top.
Yeah, the Decepticons retreat, and Wheeljack caps the energy geyser, and all is well. So let's dissect that last bit of the episode before moving on to the next one.
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned it, but Spike fixes up Skyfire.
Yeah, him and his dad are kind of like learning how to help fix the Autobots.
Yeah.
I like that.
There's Ravage shows up and scraps with Bumblebee for a bit while he's fixing him up, and then
that's kind of a neat little pairing that we'll see in various other series as well.
Yeah.
Most notably in my memory, Revenge of the Fallen.
Oh yeah, they did that. Except in this one, Ravage just kind of swats Bumblebee instead of Bumblebee performing a Mortal Kombat fatality on Ravage.
Yeah, and then Skyfire is fixed just in time, and he grabs Ravage and just yeets him.
Yes.
Just throws him.
I do like that they just exit.
Yeah,
There's a door
apparently
big enough
there's a
for-
giant door.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that level in, what is it? The Transformers PS2 game about Armada, where you go to the South American temple.
It's a deep Amazon level.
Yeah. But anyway.
But yeah, it's not just big enough for the Transformers. It's also big enough for Skyfire, who is a giant Transformer
of undescribable class and classification.
I do like that there's a shot where Skyfire is picking up Ravage and Spike and Luisa are on his chest.
Yeah.
And he's like pretty to scale.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's one of the few shots where he
changes size a lot in this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a later episode, and we'll get to that, where not only Spike and Sparkplug are in his cockpit, but also Brawn and Windcharger, or Bumblebee, or somebody. We'll get to that.
But final assault on the Incan temple.
Yeah.
Or not Incan, the ancient temple.
Yeah.
With Megatron up at the top.
Yeah, the Incan Empire covered Peru, the modern day Peru. So, yeah, those are the same. Those should be Incan temples, probably. Most likely. An archaeologist or some better historian than us would probably be able to tell better than us.
Yeah.
Or, somebody who could do some Wikipedia and Google searches.
Well, what do we know? We're just two brothers behind a mic
right.
talking about Transformers.
Anyway, so Megatron is up top the temple with his cannon and Laserbeak on his shoulder.
There's something iconic about Laserbeak either on his wrist as like, the falconer sort of position, or like that. On his shoulder, pirate style.
Right.
But Megatron with the sunset happening and the sky looks like it's on fire.
Yeah.
And Laserbeak on his shoulder, and he's got a weapon of mass destruction. I'm like, this is iconic Megatron.
Yes.
And he's just...
he's a firing his laser.
He's a firing, and they're making their way up the hill. It kind of feels like a World War II-esque push up the hill sort of fight. Optimus
and Ironhide make their way up one side, while Brawn and Windcharger make their way up the other side, and both of them lose a comrade on the way up.
Yeah.
Windcharger gets shot, and Ironhide gets shot, and does this incredible tumble down the stairs, which catches Optimus, and he mentions Robot Chicken, which... the show, he says, this is what separates the Autobots from the Robot Chickens.
Yeah.
Which is funny because the show Robot Chicken features Transformers quite often.
There was actually, fun little side note, but they wanted to get Peter Cullen to reprise his role as Optimus on Robot Chicken, and he declined because he thought that the joke was in poor taste.
Yeah, he didn't want to be disrespectful to Optimus Prime.
And it's like, okay, respect.
Which makes me wonder how they got so many lines for the Bay movies. Anyway.
Alas.
That's for way later. Okay, you need to make like a tally of how many times I say that's for later in this episode.
That's for way later.
Yeah, the tally is for way later.
Listen, we'll make the tally at the end of the show. Because only then is when we'll know. But that's for way later.
Anyway, so Brawn fights Starscream again, revenge for earlier in the episode.
Well, interesting that Windcharger gets nailed by the turret. Or is it Starscream that nails him?
I think it's Starscream.
Okay, never mind. I thought he got nailed by the turret, and I was like... He should be dead.
Yeah. No, Ironhide's the one that gets shot by the turret.
That's right.
Yeah.
He should be dead.
Yeah, he should be dead. But no, maybe that's just what weakened him up for that shot from Scrapper that kills him in the movie.
Oh, there you go. He never recovered.
It's been worse. Yeah. I remember the time on Earth when I got blasted by the full power of the Earth's core. Anyway, Ironhide gets back up and tackles Megatron, but then Megatron throws him off the cliff. But then Optimus throws Megatron off the cliff in exactly the same way that Megatron threw Ironhide off the cliff, except Optimus caught Ironhide as he was falling, but because Megatron is all about himself and doesn't have a great team, there's nobody to catch Megatron as he falls to the ground.
There you go.
I like that little
Megatron is forced to work with others.
Uno reverse card.
Yeah. Megatron is forced to work with others when he does not. And Optimus wants to do it alone, but he doesn't have to because he's got his friends.
Yes.
It's also very WrestleMania, the way they get thrown off.
Yeah, I love it. Anyway, so as the Decepticons retreat, Thundercracker gets to dig it on everybody.
He gets one last, you guys look pretty geeky.
Yeah, he even insults Megatron to his face.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
But yeah, he straight up says, maybe the Autobots aren't so bad after all.
Yeah.
But I think it's less of like, maybe they're the good guys and more of just like, maybe they're not as geeky as I thought they were.
Yeah, I think that in Thundercracker's mind, there's no good and evil sides in the war. It's just that he's on a side with a bunch of losers.
Yes. And this is also where we learn why he gets his name, is because he makes a atrociously loud noise with his engines.
Right. He's supposed to be able to go sonic at will, which is the cracking thunder.
Okay.
I believe, and he makes sonic booms. He can just make them, and we do actually see that in Heavy Metal War, when Megatron takes his power, but we rarely ever see Thundercracker use that ability.
Yeah. But Starscream says he gets a headache from it, which is, of all things to not have spiffy robot lingo for.
Yeah, it's just...
You feel like a headache would be one of them, but it's not.
I have a cerebral malfunction. I don't know. That sounds like brain damage. I have processor percussion. I don't know.
Sure. See, it's got to be so irrelevant to the actual body part that it's supposed to be standing in for.
Right.
That it barely applies, but somehow it works.
Right. So anyway, Wheeljack caps the energy geyser with
the turret's been destroyed and there's a hole in the front of the temple. So, and it's just shooting out.
Yeah, so there's just this flaming geyser coming out, and they just put a cork in it, basically.
Yeah, Wheeljack just makes a cap, like it looks like a hatch to a submarine.
Yeah.
And just schleps
and it's
it
on
there.
top of the temple instead of down where the geyser begins. So inside the temple, there's still just this enormous fireball.
It'll just build up until the temple itself explodes, and then it's just gonna get bigger.
Thanks, Wheeljack.
But no, just put a cork on it. It'll be fine.
And then I guess they had to put them outside so they could do the little light show with the headlights.
Yeah,
and
all
stuff.
the Autobots line up in vehicle modes on the.
We congratulate Wheeljack for not making something that's going to kill Teletran this time.
Right. Well, they do like the little light show into the night sky, and then they all drive back. And
there's the famous line about the girl's brother's convertible car.
Luisa's brother's convertible, Juanita.
Yeah, who she wants to hook up with Bumblebee.
Yes.
Which, I mean, maybe if, in Transformers, there's quite often Transformers that stick around. They show up in ancient times and they stick around for a long time, and maybe Juanita was one of those old school Transformers that showed up.
One of the ancient ones.
Yeah, and she's just been scanning new vehicle modes since then, and currently she is a convertible, Maybe back in the day when she first showed up, she was a beast former, Or not beast former, that's a separate thing, but, beast form Transformer.
I like that.
Maybe she was one of the Insecticons, but she turned good. Because when we get to that episode, I've got some theories for you.
I like all of those.
Yes.
However, counter-argument, Little Red Car in Robots in Disguise,
okay,
where
that's fair.
I don't even know what his name is, but
Sideburn.
Sideburn, running gag through the show is that he's got a crush on a Little Red Car that's just a car.
Yeah.
And
so is that like people getting crushes on inanimate objects, or like getting married to
she's real to me?
We'll have a heyday when we get to Robots in Disguise.
Oh yeah. Apparently it's enough to make even Bumblebee blush or warp in a unnatural cartoon-like fashion.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
All in all, fun episode.
Yeah, I like that Skyfire's back, even if it really weirds me out with his funeral in the previous episode.
I think the highlight was probably Brawn, Windcharger, and Skyfire.
Oh little commando team,
little Where Eagles Dare action.
Yeah, I like it. So before we move on to the next episode, let's take a short break, and we'll be back in just a second. And we're back with episode 10, War of the Dinobots.
This is a good one.
Yeah,
we're gonna have how much I liked this one until I rewatched it. You
thought we had a lot to talk about the last 3 episodes. Get ready, buckle in. We're gonna be here all night.
Just all of my notes say, I thought it was pretty good. And that's it.
There will be episodes we get to eventually that will be like that, I imagine.
Definitely in some of the later stuff where it's just it's fine.
Yeah.
But
some of the filler material in a couple of the later shows.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the other hand, War of the Dinobots. Chip detects a meteor that is also an energy source headed for Earth. The Autobots watch it land, becoming a meteorite, and take a sample to study, leaving the Dinobots to guard it.
Optimus Prime decides to have Wheeljack build 2 more Dinobots. So that's how this episode starts out.
So we start on a positive note. Chip's back!
Yeah, Chip and Jeff. Which
Jeff.
I feel like Jeff is in a few other episodes, but I'm not sure.
Was he the scientist at the observatory?
Possibly.
Okay.
He's
who's Jeff in this one?
Wait, no, I'm sorry. Yes, this observatory, yes. But
Okay.
I feel like Jeff shows up in a few other episodes. Hang on just a second. I'm going to find out real quick.
It might be a Dr. Fujiyama, the famous scientist situation.
Yeah, he's only in this episode. Okay, my brain is playing tricks on me. But I thought for sure he was in a previous episode. At, like, Alcazar's lab or something. I don't know. I'm going to start my own headcanon and cult around the character Jeff. No, I'm kidding. You can cut all this if you want.
Headcanon and a cult.
Yes. Anyway. Alright, so... Yeah, Chip is hanging out with Jeff at the observatory, and they're just watching this meteor come to Earth.
What a successful guy.
Chip gets
he's
around.
in college.
Yeah.
He works with, like, nuclear physicists and astronomers, and he's got the best internship program I've ever seen.
I was going to say, this is why you take internships while you're in college. You get to try a lot of different things.
There you go.
Like, anyway.
I just hoped it amounted to something for Chip.
So apparently there's something special about this meteor because they called the Autobots to come and watch it crash into the Earth.
Yeah.
Not stop it. We'll watch it crash.
They said, like, the radiation was off the charts or something with it.
Yeah. So that's why Optimus is determined that it might have electrical or energy. It could have uncalculatable energy. It could be a source of energy. Yes.
But on the way to observe this phenomenon and not shoot at it as they normally do.
Yeah.
Spike is like, oh yeah, it's great that we don't have to worry about the Decepticons. And Optimus in a very flat, I always worry about the Decepticons.
Oh my goodness. Is that not telling that he is just absolutely paranoid?
It makes wonder.
Sense because they are at war, so he should be. That is his job.
The question about this from Spike's perspective, though, is that do they think that the Decepticons are gone for good every time that Megatron says, Decepticons, retreat!
Well, I mean, that is how a previous episode ended when Optimus comes back from the brink of death and defeats the Decepticons. Well, no, Spike has the depressing line about them coming back eventually or something like that. But anyway.
I don't know.
There's a lot of times in season 1 where they question, are the Decepticons gone for good? And then they're like, nah. But Optimus knows that he's in an 80s episodic cartoon.
Yeah, it's like, it's bound to happen.
Yep.
It will happen. But the funny thing, I love, a good eye glow of intrigue or
a fistula.
random energy conduit happening around a bot of some kind.
Yeah.
But Optimus saying the meteor could have untapped potential of energy. He looks up to the sky and clenches his fist, and there's just like crackles with electricity.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
It's like, how do they do that? Is that like cracking your knuckles or something?
Maybe. But it's just so funny that he's got that look when it's just a line about like, yeah, there could be a lot of energy in that.
Did they say that? Because I was under the impression that Optimus just assumed it had something to do with energy.
No, he does say it. I think that's one of the few lines where they say, like, yeah, there's a lot of energy in this meteor.
Yeah. So anyway, they go to watch it crash land, and they are, like, nowhere near far enough away. And, like, this meteor crashing would have done way more damage than smashing a building.
Because consider the
Maybe
size.
it just doesn't weigh anything.
Maybe?
I don't know. Or maybe it's something to do with the energy inside it. I don't know. But a meteor of that size crashing from that far up is going to do way more damage.
Consider the following, that it's about the size of Optimus.
Yes.
At least the same height as Optimus.
That would wipe out a city.
Yes.
And instead it knocks down a shed.
In our incredible inability to contribute to topics of expertise,
Yes.
we can guarantee that would do way more damage.
Right. Unless it just, like, doesn't weigh anything and just kind of fell down instead of crashed down. Like,
Could be.
because later on, the Seekers, the 3 jets, just kind of tow it off, and they were able to fly it through the sky. And I know they're more powerful than a regular jet and whatnot, but I would assume...
A jet still is bound by the laws of physics.
I know. I would assume that something that big would probably be pretty heavy and would be hard for them to get up into the air. So...
What are we
My
talking
guess
about?
is that it's lighter. Yeah, this is an 80s cartoon.
Yeah.
Why am I trying to apply logic to it? That's what our podcast is about, though, is dissecting
True.
these episodes.
True that.
Anyway, so
also,
physics
very,
aside.
very, very convenient that it just so happened to land in Detroit, or I mean, an abandoned town. But
Detroit's not that abandoned anymore.
it's good.
But anyway, Spike suggests that they call it Meteoroni Chipperoni, and I'm like, shut up, Spike.
Chip, you discovered it. We could call it Meteorini Chipperoni or something like that. And it's like, oh, that sounds pretty tasty, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could eat that, I suppose. But
Yeah.
the some people don't like Chip. They think he's annoying. I disagree. I actually see where Daniel gets his annoyingness from, and it's from Spike making terrible jokes all the time.
Horrible one line.
Yeah.
He got grizzled up a little bit in later seasons.
Yeah.
But the timing of this one scene where they're like, Optimus is like, everybody stand back. We don't know what this meteor could do. It's filled with energy, probably super radioactive, everything like that. And immediately afterwards it says, let's get a sample. Shoots the meteor.
See, Optimus' solution to everything is just shoot it. I'm starting to understand where Bayformers Optimus comes from.
But it's just hilariously reckless, right? I'll just shoot the possible Chernobyl that's happening right here.
Right. But anyway, also another funny line is when the meteor crashes, Ironhide shields the humans, and stuff bounces off him, and they're like, thanks, Ironhide, and Chip just says, wow, no wonder he's called Ironhide.
Well, it kind of touches on a point that I wanted to make about Chip, is that because he's in it kind of rarely, they actually pay attention to the fact that the wonder of the Transformers is still there for him.
Yeah, because he's still, like, in awe of them transforming.
Yeah.
You know, they
like,
they show the stock.
How many times I see it, it just doesn't, it's incredible.
Yeah, we'll get used to it. That stock footage is going to be used a lot.
Yeah.
But it is still pretty cool. I like it.
But the meat of this episode that I sunk my teeth into is Optimus's relationship with the Dinobots.
Right.
And it starts with they're just on their way to the meteors, and they're like, we'll just bring the Dinobots here. Yeah. And Optimus
to guard it.
To guard it and stuff. But more of speaking to himself than to any either Spike or Chip riding in his cab. He says, I'm pleased with the Dinobots. I think I'll have Wheeljack make 2 more.
Yeah.
As casual as can be.
Yeah. I'll just have him make 2 more. Optimus, he knows he's got to sell some toys. but
him not being pleased with the Dinobots themselves is more pleased with just their performance.
The concept of them, their functionality.
Yeah.
And it's like, we've got some guys that we can just set here as guards, and they're just they're just tools right now. Yeah. I think I'll have Wheeljack make me some more tools.
He's basically like, this Allen wrench is working really good for me.
Yeah. How about a crescent wrench?
Yeah. So, oh boy, it's time to play God again.
Right. Yep. And it is pretty interesting, and that will be kind of the core of this episode too. So
they set the Dinobots to guard the meteorite while they study it to see what happens, and they leave.
Which means that if they think the meteorite is dangerous, they've just left these 3 guys in danger,
and they're just like, we don't know what this is gonna do.
They're useful, expendable crewmen.
These guys are the toughest ones, which I guess makes sense from a tactical perspective.
Right.
And also have the highest likelihood of being able to fend off the Decepticons if they come and go after it.
Yeah, it is
which
true.
They do.
Yeah.
They don't account for the fact that Megatron is smarter than he looks.
Right.
And is taking the time to review the footage from S.O.S. Dinobots. And
Yeah, I love how he's just rewatching the previous episode.
Yeah. It's like, I missed this when it was on syndication. I got it.
Yeah, he's
recorded
catching up on his
VHS.
reruns.
But he views them as a big enough threat to analyze them and their tactics, and
yeah,
it's more of like spite, where it's like, I can't stand being beaten by something that the Autobots have.
right. I do like that, where he's got this sort of grudge against the Dinobots.
Yeah.
And so he sends Soundwave to scan the Dinobots' brains to learn their weaknesses, and Megatron uses this information to play on their egos and manipulate them into revolting against Optimus Prime when he inevitably returns.
Yeah.
Which, that's like the next section of the episode, so let's go ahead and dissect that.
The cool thing about this is the way that Optimus and Megatron view the Dinobots, where Optimus is more of like, they are weapons of mass destruction.
Yes.
And Optimus views them as that, and that they're dangerous, they're volatile, but they are useful, and they get the job done.
Yes.
He doesn't seem to view them in any other light.
Yeah, he doesn't see them as characters,
right?
As people, really.
Meanwhile, Megatron views them as like, how can I use them to my advantage?
Right.
And also, how can I beat them?
Right.
Because they're more of an insult to him.
Yeah. And to beat them, he has to get to know them.
Right. Which
because
says a lot more about the fact that he's willing to manipulate anything, even if it's a personal relationship with somebody. But the fact that he's more willing to make a personal relationship with Dinobots than Optimus has shown at this point.
Right.
But it's so interesting that they both view them as these WMDs.
Right.
Well, the Dinobots might not, at this point, be fully aware of how big of an impact they have on, like, the battlefield and the landscape of the war itself. They're just 3 guys.
Yeah. yeah, they are 3 guys who just came into existence, 2 episodes ago.
Right. And like, war is all they know at this point.
Right.
The Autobots lived, even Starscream lived in a time where there was peaceful endeavors, like, science work and everything.
Yeah.
The Dinobots have only known war.
Yes.
They are super soldiers created for the war.
Yes. Yeah, and
it's also fun because Starscream has a line where he says, Megatron's like, I can't believe we got beaten by them. Yeah. And Starscream's like, well, we were brilliant in battle. And
no, they weren't.
Not really. But I like the concept that the Decepticons view the way that they fight as, like, honorable.
Yeah, the Decepticons...
we had brilliant tactics. We were great.
Yeah, and the Dinobots are barbaric by their standards.
They are savage.
They are savage. But that's why they won, just through sheer brute force.
Exactly.
So,
brilliant's my boron compressor, Megatron says.
Fantastic.
I would love to say that at some point, where it's like, brilliant, my spleen.
Yeah. Like, is that a body part that they compress boron for energy or something, or is that just like a low grade machine on Cybertron? It's just compressed like a trash compactor.
It just
or something.
compresses boron.
That's all it does. But it rhymes with moron, so it's a great insult.
Yeah. But we get a little bit of Soundwave
doing
sneaking
spy
around,
stuff.
spying.
Yeah, with his little listening snake, his device of the day.
Yeah, I love how it looks like just a mouse on a cord.
He just has the ability to scan people's brains.
Yeah.
I guess the Dinobots don't have as much...
they don't have much brain.
to scan, so it's easier for them to... Like, with a Jedi mind trick, the weaker the mind...
the easier it is,
but you can train your mind to not be affected by mind tricks and stuff.
Right.
So, like, the Dinobots, they just speak their mind,
Right.
They just immediately start talking when he's scanning their brain, even from a distance, Like, in other things, like with Chip, Soundwave had to hold his brain. He had to put his fingers on his head to get the information out.
Maybe he's, like, gradually improving his equipment or something
it
like
could
that.
be, yeah.
Maybe it's, like, the same thing, but he's just, like, I'll put it in a little... My Decepticon badge on my forehead.
Yeah, it's... I mean, so it's not impossible. Maybe he was just holding Chip in place because the Dinobots don't move much. They just kind of
True.
stand around.
Yeah.
But maybe Chip was moving, so he was holding him in place, and then the beam was coming out of his forehead to scan
Could
Chip's
be.
brain. So, yeah, it's not that surprising as I first thought. But, yeah, apparently he can just scan people's brains.
Right. It also...
But it does have precedent in a previous episode, so there's a little continuity from Slidey hand technology.
Yeah. Even he has a consistent device of the day with the little mouse that he uses to spy on them. Because he used that in S.O.S. Dinobots as well. But...
Oh yeah, he did.
Also, I was going to say this earlier, was that back to Megatron viewing the Dinobots as characters and needing to get to know them to strategize against them, kind of leans into what I was saying previously about Autobots and Decepticons have been at this for so long that they just know each other's names and their powers.
Right.
But
or it's like, oh, I've heard of that guy.
He only has fought the Dinobots once at this point, presumably. So he doesn't know their names and he doesn't know their powers yet.
Right.
You know, so...
He only was on the receiving end of them. So.
Yeah. So, yeah, it makes sense that, you know, having gotten to know the opposition over this time, this is a curveball. This is something that he doesn't know, so he needs to get to know them.
It's unfamiliar, and that's the worst thing that Megatron could have on his plate. And I do like that he's one of the few who's actually like, what are their motives?
Right.
But it's purely from a, like, sociopathic perspective.
Right,
of,
he
like,
only wants to know how he can use these people.
He doesn't actually want to understand them, he just wants to know them, sort of thing.
Yeah. He doesn't want to have a relationship with them, he just wants to know what parts of their
what
brain
are the
he
right
can play
buttons
with,
that I can press.
like Azula in Avatar.
Yeah.
The Last Airbender. Speaking of getting to know them, I see you have a lot of notes about their personalities that they display.
So Megatron, after Soundwave's brain scan, comes to the conclusion that Snarl is hostile, Grimlock is arrogant, and Sludge is stupid.
Okay, hang on. Sludge is not stupid. He recognized the Autobot insignia without even being told. So, he's not that dumb.
Sometimes not even the Autobots or Decepticons can recognize that symbol.
Right. Now, to be fair, that's sometimes just animation error, but it is kind of funny when somebody just walks up with the wrong logo on and they're like, hey, how you doing?
So, the Dinobots have a couple lines where they speak their minds. I didn't write it down, but Slag boils down to he's just pure violence.
Right.
And he doesn't care where the fight is, he only needs to be in the fight.
Right.
And it means that he's probably the most susceptible to being manipulated into, like, either side.
Yeah, because he really just needs to be pointed in the right direction.
He just needs to be pointed in that way. But so he goes along with Grimlock's plan in this episode, mainly because it results in antagonizing people.
Yeah.
And
so maybe Snarl would be a better Decepticon.
It could be, but he is ultimately loyal to the Dinobots because they're his family.
Right. But also, if you think about it, he has to be pointed in the right direction.
Right.
Right? So he does know that there is a right direction to be pointed in.
Exactly.
You know, he just needs somebody else to tell him where to shoot.
Right. And
he loves to shoot, but he knows that there's a specific area that he needs to shoot at.
Exactly. The whole crux of this episode is around, like, do the strong lead and should the strong lead.
Yes.
And how people how the Transformers, like, revolve around that concept and where does everybody lie with that. Slag is specifically around the strongest is the person who points me in the right direction.
Yes.
Sludge is, you know, he is a little stupid, but but he's more he's just slow and plotting, like, you know,
like the Brontosaurus.
Like the Brontosaurus he is. But he is the most loyal out of the Dinobots, and he kind of goes with the flow, but once you have his loyalty by being the strongest, because he says he follows strongest leader
Right.
always.
Yeah.
You will always have his devotion.
Right.
Which is why he follows Grimlock, who, on the brain scan, I believe his line is, he says, Optimus is strong, but me think Grimlock stronger, or something like that. So he is ambitious, but it's purely out of like a competitive sense.
Yeah, he wants to know like who the best is.
Right, and it's more of absolute leadership, where...
He wants to prove himself.
It's merit based.
Meritocracy.
You should earn the right to lead.
Right. And he has not seen Optimus lead at this point.
Right.
The only time that he's interacted with him was when he was rescuing him.
Exactly.
So no wonder he thinks that Optimus is weak.
Right.
You know?
I've never seen him in action. We haven't seen what the Dinobots have done in between missions.
Right.
Who knows?
Probably nothing.
They probably just go live in the cave.
Yeah. I mean, in the Ultimate Doom, they actually come out of a door, so they're just standing behind this door.
Yeah. They probably have like
they're
a
probably
den.
in the cave. I think they're in the cave that they found
that
the
they were
dinosaur
born
bones.
in.
Right. You know, so Optimus always trying to shove him in the closet.
Nobody puts Grimlock in the corner.
Yeah. Anyway, so
But,
it is true. You know, it makes sense. This is part of why I say these early episodes are really well written, because like it actually is on that continuity of Grimlock has not seen Optimus be the strongest.
Yeah,
he's
and
been
if
the
they've
leader,
been put on missions, it's probably like this one where they're just
guarding
guard
something.
this thing,
right,
and then they don't see him,
right. So he actually has not tested Optimus's mettle at this point.
He respects strength above all else.
Right. And Optimus has not shown strength yet.
Right.
He's shown, that he can organize things, but in Grimlock's primitive mind, that's not strength.
Right.
That's just something people do.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's slightly mixed in with a bit of ego where he's like, well, clearly I'm the strongest.
Right,
sort of
right,
thing.
right.
But it's not
in a way it's justified because he is the strongest.
He kind of is. But it's also that he's more of wants the best for the Dinobots.
Yeah.
Is that the strongest is going to be the one who will be able to make sure that his Dinobots are happy, safe, and, get what they want.
Right.
And if it's him, then so be it. It's less of like ambition out of like Starscream where he's like, I just want to undercut you because I don't like the fact that you lead.
Right.
It should be me.
Right.
Sort of thing. It's not necessarily him
right.
that he thinks should be the leader. It's more of just the strongest.
Right.
And by my calculations, that's me. So be it.
Right. Yeah. And and that's his arc in this episode is he's learning
what does true strength mean?
Right. There is other strengths besides just brawn.
Right.
Not the
his
character,
whole thing
but,
is,
the muscle.
Well, he's pretty strong, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe Brawn should lead.
Yeah.
or Huffer.
By Grimlock standard, Brawn or Huffer would be the leader.
Just because they're one of the strong.
Yeah.
Or maybe Omega Supreme should lead.
There you go.
He is supreme.
He's quite supreme.
Yes.
But Grimlock's whole ideology is based off of might at this point. And physical might.
Yes.
And that's kind of where Megatron preys on that.
Instead of Megatron makes the smart choice in this episode instead of trying to outmatch the Dinobots physically because he knows that he can't beat them and that would be the only way that he could control them is if he could beat them. Right. Instead, he lets Grimlock think he's in command, but he's always whispering in his ear.
He gives him strength without the fight for it.
Right.
Without merits.
Right.
Which is why it's wrong.
Yeah, he's deceiving him.
Yeah.
As a Decepticon.
Whoa!
Wow! We figured out the
Guys,
show!
We did it. Oh my goodness.
Alright, the podcast is over.
Wrap it up.
We learned a lesson. Anyway.
Decepticon's bad?
Anyway. Also, Grimlock has a new head design in this episode.
Yeah. Last one was a lot more rounds. We kind of discussed it in S.O.S, but it's more angular and
more boxy.
Boxy.
Yeah,
and it's kind of the design that lasts for...
This is the canon head design because it's the one that makes it into the movie.
Yeah.
So that's sort of Although I do like Optimus's more round head in season 1 than in his blocky head in season 2, and I believe the blocky head is the one that makes it into the movie. So, take it or leave it.
Right.
But I do like Grimlock's round head too.
Yeah, they're both good.
Yeah. Although Optimus has kind of a blocky head in this episode as well.
Something I noticed is that his brow visor is a lot bigger in this one. It looks more like a baseball cap.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
which is a look that I like.
In fact, there's a shot later on that almost looks like the way he's designed in the G2 comics.
Yeah, where it almost looks like a military hat of some kind.
Yeah.
But Megatron goes to the meteor alone, which is pretty
well, first the jets attack and the Dinobots very easily fend them off.
Right.
And then Grimlock runs up by himself, gets his arm cannon knocked off, and is like, "Hang on, I'm not here to fight. I'm here to talk."
Yeah. Oh, Meg.
Which, interestingly enough, the Dinobots actually take a moment to listen, but mostly because he's really good at brown nosing.
Yeah.
Which is probably how he got to his position of power in the first place anyway.
True. And he just held on to it.
Well, that's not necessarily true because that is contradicted in Five Faces of Darkness, but as I've said many times this episode, we'll get there.
It shall be there. But Megatron kind of stroking the Dinobot's ego.
Yes.
It's slimy, it's deceptive, but it's also the first time anyone's actually shown the Dinobots any sort of respect.
Yeah, as characters, not as machines.
Right. And it's it's respecting strength without the merit, which is why it appeals to Grimlock and the other Dinobots.
Well, no, it is restricting strength because of the merit.
Right.
Megatron,
they have proved their merit.
Megatron has been on the business end of their blasters. Mm-hmm. He knows full well how strong they are.
So Grimlock's philosophy still stands at this
exactly.
point.
Yeah, he's fully playing into their ego because they are the strongest. Megatron knows they're stronger than him.
Right.
And that's how he gets their attention, is like, dude, I can't beat you. I just want to talk.
Yeah. But he manages
because you are the strongest.
Yeah, he manages to twist that into Optimus hasn't earned the right to lead you since you're so strong.
Exactly.
And it plants the seed, because up until that point, it was only kind of like simmering under the surface, just internal thoughts.
Right.
But this is the first time that they've actually had it brought out.
He's really able to draw it out of them.
And
I love Sludge's, Grimlock decides, hey, you know what? You're right. I should be in charge. All of this is coming to a head all at once.
Optimus must be destroyed.
He's like really, he's right. He's right. Yeah, I'm being I'm
not
justified.
being respected.
I'm being justified in this moment. All my thoughts are being justified. I should be in charge. And then Sludge is just like, hail him, Grimlock. I love that.
He's a super loyal guy.
Yeah. Sludge is a bimbo.
Yeah.
I love him.
We love Sludge.
Yes. Meanwhile, all this is going on. Wheeljack announces that the meteorite is unstable and could explode, so Prime goes to check on the Dinobots who attack him. They battle Optimus and capture him. Meanwhile, the new Dinobots, Snarl and Swoop, are being tested at the base.
Yeah. So when Grimlock and them decide to turn on Optimus, the Seekers pick up the meteorite and carry it off, light as a feather.
Yeah. Well, we already discussed that.
Yeah.
So the Dinobot instruction the note you have here is
so the Autobots are building the second the two
and
new
they let Chip decide the other two Dinobots what they'll turn into, which is kind of neat because Spike probably got to choose the previous ones.
Right.
And Sparkplug is like, Tyranno what's this and Stega who's this? Is there anything you don't know, Chip? And I'm like, Sparkplug's generally a very smart guy. This is kind of out of character.
This feels mean.
Yeah, it feels mean to Sparkplug.
Every time Chip's on screen, he's just doing his thing, and then somebody manages to work in a little bit of a nerd.
Well, no, I'm talking about Sparkplug. Like, it's demeaning to Sparkplug. Like, it's out of character for him because he's generally a smart guy.
He is.
And here he can't even read instruction manuals correctly.
Yeah.
What's up with Sparkplug in this episode?
Yeah, they're making, I believe the full term, as they're building the Dinobots, he's reading some sort of instruction manual.
Also, they made instructions on how to build Dinobots. I love it. Like they're Legos or something.
Right. But it says, out space, line, space, plan desge. Which I love.
Yeah. Thanks. Somebody couldn't spell who was drawing this.
But they just built 2 new Dinobots.
Yeah, and Ironhide seems to create the metal they use out of like pouring something on the ground. Like, is it liquid nitrogen? Did he just freeze the dirt?
What are the Dinobots made out of?
Are these 2 like super brittle or something?
Yeah.
Anyway, so the meteor is about to explode, and Beyblade Trail Breaker. I can't talk.
Try saying that 7 times fast.
Beyblade Trail Breaker throws a force field onto the meteor.
Yeah, up until this point, he's been able to either shoot it from his shoulder-mounted like array, or just do it.
But here he's got to spin around like a madman. He's got to
spin around into a little animated tornado to cast the force field.
Also, everybody's very calm for it exploding immediately as soon as he puts his force field on it. But how does Wheeljack have time to study the meteor and build 2 new Dinobots?
Yeah.
I guess he's good at...
He's a multitasker.
Yeah, delegation. But Snarl has an epic design and a really cool intro coming out of that light with a sword, and he's just like, I'm Snarl.
I really
Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, I really wanted to point that out where they like introduce the Dinobots. It's like their grand debut. And Optimus doesn't have time to stick around and view it because he just drives off to go check on the meteorite and the other Dinobots.
Yes.
But they're up in the volcano.
Yeah.
And
they're doing it outside this time so Teletran doesn't get smashed.
Yes. They're learning.
Yeah.
But Wheeljack introduces them, and Snarl steps out from like glowing light, and he's like exquisitely animated too. Yeah. And he's got a great sheen on him, and he has a sword.
Yep.
And
the way that solar panels in his solar panel.
Yeah, the way that his tail, he turns into a Stegosaurus.
Yeah.
The way that his tail and the back spines are arranged, it kind of looks like this cool, like, barbarian banner that's around the back of him.
Right.
His head kind of looks like a crown.
Yeah.
And I was just like, Conan the Barbarian vibes all the way, like you said.
Yeah. While Sludge is probably my favorite Dinobot, Snarl has my favorite design.
Yeah.
He's so cool.
Yeah, he comes out, and then
Swoop is a close second for favorite character.
Swoop he gets a lot of spotlights in later episodes, but Swoop he's a
nice guy.
Yeah, and he's got a good design. I love the crest of the pterosaur that he's modeled off of.
Petrie from Land Before Time.
Yeah. Yeah, he's also
honestly, they're like the same grouping of dinosaurs, except for the ducky. She's not in the Dinobots.
Alas. Hadrosaur.
Hadrosaur.
That's what she is. Yeah.
Anyway.
But Swoop comes out and like flies out.
Yeah.
And this is a big thing because it's another
flying Autobot.
Another flying Autobot that can also fly in their vehicle mode.
And vehicle mode.
So
alternate mode in this case.
Yeah. So now they're like, we're gonna test the Dinobots, and by tests they mean we're gonna beat them up.
we're gonna let y'all fight it. We got the other 3 got to rampage around the base, so we gotta have these guys rampage too. And of course they clean house on the Autobots.
Yeah.
The Sideswipe stands a pretty good chance against. I guess he wasn't really in the previous fight. At least not that much. Sunstreaker was. Sunstreaker sits this one out.
Yeah. It's Sideswipe's time to shine.
Yeah.
And shine he does, because the Dinobots, they do like a little test battle with them.
Yeah.
And Swoop flies in and shoots a few of them down, and then Sideswipe gets up and he's like, I've been itching for a fight. flying, I'm assuming using his rocket pack,
Yeah.
up into the air and basically Shoryuken, like Ken from Street Fighter style, punches
Hadouken!
Swoop out of the air.
Yeah.
And I had to pause the video for a second because I was like, a giant robot just uppercutted a robot dinosaur out of the sky. I love this show.
Yep. And then, yeah, so then Wheeljack and Ratchet are like, yeah, the test is over before you guys get destroyed, and Sideswipe's like, we could have taken them, even though they just got, maybe, just after he just got thrashed.
It's a good fight. I like the choreography on it. They
nice
they work together.
hijinks.
Yeah, they work together to like try and grab Snarl's tail, which is like his main weapon. It kind of makes sense. I do like the Wheeljack's kind of narrating the Dinobots' abilities when it first starts.
Yeah.
Where Snarl, I don't know if it really ever gets brought up later on, but he has a gradual power up where it's the longer he stays in the sun, the more powerful he gets because his fins on the back of his Stegosaurus spines are like solar panels.
Right. Which has been a long-standing like theory amongst paleontologists as to what the those fins on an actual
they were either like
Stegosaurus do.
They're gonna like cooling things.
Not
for,
that
like,
they would
heat
shoot
of the day
lasers with them, but like
Yeah.
they would cool them during the day and warm them up at night or something like that. You know.
We theorize that this is actually based off of a robot dinosaur.
Yes.
And Swoop can fly. It has bombs.
Yeah, I like how he's got those bombs like a fighter jet.
Yeah.
But speaking of good fights, Optimus versus the Dinobots is pretty cool. He shows up and gets blasted by Dinobots.
Yeah.
He's like, "Wait, why are you attacking me?"
It's he just pulls up and then Slag is the first one to shoot him.
Yeah.
Which says a lot.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Slag, in recent media, his name has been changed to Slug because apparently slag is a slur in some countries.
Interesting.
Even though the way it's being used here is in reference to the byproduct
like
from
metal
smelting, it produces slag. You've got the pure metal and the refuse, which is the slag. And in Beast Wars, it's used as like a swear word.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. So this barbarian lunatic guy is his name became a byword in 300 years or whatever Beast Wars is later. So
yeah, a lot of the Dinobots
I think that's pretty funny. That he's so savage that like 500 years later, people just use his name as a swear word.
People still use his name to this day.
Right. Or what did Wheeljack just name him a cuss word?
Could be.
You know,
Wheeljack's a savage. You never know.
Yeah. Anyway,
we do a lot of the Dinobots' names in like later media get shuffled around a lot. Grimlock is the one that I think has stayed the most consistent out of all of them.
And sometimes it's just because they couldn't get the copyright for some reason.
Exactly.
But,
because sometimes not all the Dinobots feature.
but yeah, I think that Grimlock and probably Snarl have been pretty consistent.
Yeah. So the Dinobots turn on Optimus, and it's a pretty good fight. I like that they show there's a lot of good fight choreography in this. Where, I mean, a lot of it is just like person blasts person throws other thing at other person, gets hit, knocked over, grabs other person, throws them, sort of thing.
But we get to see Optimus do his best against three of the most powerful Transformers.
It's the fact that Optimus alone is able to go toe-to-toe with...
And he tends to get in 3-on-1s. He gets into 3-on-1s a lot in the first season because he also fought the 3 jet Decepticons in a previous episode where he got blown up into a commercial break. Well, probably not into a commercial break, but you know, he got blown up. But he held his own against the Seekers pretty well until he had to protect some humans. Here he holds his own for a little while, but gets just beaten down.
Just overwhelmed.
Yeah, overwhelmed. Because these guys are more powerful than
These three took out
Decepticons.
the entire Decepticon unit that was
Right.
present at S.O.S. Dinobots.
Which is basically all of them.
Right. So it shows how adept Optimus is on his own, but eventually he gets whittled down and then tossed into a hole.
Yeah.
And
And he's like, wait, but we're friends. And Grimlock, he tries to, too late, he tries to appeal to the Dinobots with, wait, we're friends. Why are you trying to destroy me? And Grimlock comes back with this savage remark, goodbye, friend. You are weak, so you must be destroyed.
Yeah.
Dang!
Super succinct.
Yeah.
Super straight to the point.
Yeah.
Super accurate.
Yep.
Because he...
It
most
sums
of the time,
up everything that we've been saying up to this point.
He knows nuance. Like, he emphasizes friends.
Right.
Like,
He's got sarcasm now.
Yeah.
Character upgrade. Sarcasm
Sarcasm achieved. So they shoot him with the full blast, and he falls down, and they think he's dead. So at this point, Grimlock has viewed the whole thing, the whole ordeal, as basically like, this is the test.
Yeah. If
Is Optimus like strong enough
can
to
he
lead?
beat us? Yeah.
And yeah, him scoffing at, friends is like, we're not friends. We're at best co-workers.
Yeah.
At worst, slaves.
Right.
And he survives the onslaught, and Grimlock sees this, and he's like, oh, he can survive all three of us.
Yeah.
Tag teaming. Not just me on a one-on-one. He can survive all of us.
Yeah, all three of
He
us.
said, maybe he's stronger than I thought.
Right.
And he's actually like pretty confused at this.
Yeah. He says, maybe he's not as weak as I thought.
Yeah.
Or, well, in Grimlock's speech.
Right.
He says it. So he doesn't
Slag
kill him.
is immediately like, okay, we get to kill him now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Grimlock shoves him aside, and he's
Yeah.
like, why did you stop me? And he said, I don't know.
Right.
So he's still figuring it out. Still
And
trying to figure out, does this mean he's stronger?
Yeah. And
'Cause-
Optimus suggests that it might be the Autobot training, because Optimus,
You can tell he's
we-
kind of thinking, maybe they're mind controlled at this point.
Right. That's not outside the realm of possibility, because we'll see it throughout the rest of the series that mind control stuff does happen a lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Like, Megatron himself has a mind-controlling snake inside his chest.
Right. He turned Bumblebee. Well, he just kind of he confused Bumblebee.
Right.
But yeah, Optimus thinks that maybe the training that they've been putting into them has been working. So we do know that the Autobots have been doing things with the Dinobots
Right.
up to this point. And I'm sure Optimus, because as much as I make jokes about him being a savage, more savage than I remember, he is still that kind and compassionate leader who is, Grandpa Optimus, a father to the Autobots.
I think this characterization that I'm reading way too much into Optimus is he's caught up in the war.
Yeah.
And he's got so many responsibilities that he's started to having to like detach a little bit.
Yeah.
And if things were different, he might have been able to be the Dinobot's friend.
Yeah.
But now he's at a point where he's so stressed, he's so pushed to the limit that he's just like, hey, yeah, we're friends.
Yeah, because he at this point he is constantly worrying about the Decepticons.
Yeah.
So fortunately, whatever training he's already put in place teaches these values of mercy.
Right. From an objective standpoint, they have the mercy and kindness ideals instilled in them.
Yeah, or maybe it's just something that Wheeljack programmed into their new brains.
True. But at Optimus mentioning this, where it's like, oh, sweet, the Autobot training's like still, it remains in your circuits and stuff. Grimlock like hoists him up out of the thing and like in his face, and he's just like, don't talk or we're gonna terminate you right now.
Yeah. He said
he's still pretty ticked off. At Optimus.
because he's like, what are these emotions I'm having?
Mm-hmm.
So instead, he takes him to Megatron. He's like, hey, no talk or we'll kill you now. And then with sideswipes rocket packs.
Yeah.
Which are colored like Skyfire for some reason.
Yeah.
They take... I guess it was so useful to Optimus that he didn't want to have to yell at people every time he needed them, so he just had them
My
mass
rocket
produced.
pack now.
Yeah, so they take him to Megatron, where they are draining the meteorite just before their energon cubes explode. But anyway, yeah.
I do like that they're smart. They're not stupid.
Yeah.
They are a little dumb.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, we don't want to kill him. What do we do? I don't know. Let's have someone else make the decision.
Right. But then also, not really, because Grimlock is also like, because...
He's also in the camp
brings,
of, I want answers.
Yeah, he brings him to Megatron, and Megatron asks, why is Optimus not dead? And Grimlock says, I'll kill him when I feel like it.
Yeah. Grimlock above everything else at this point just wants agency of some kind. Because he doesn't kill him immediately because he wants to be the one that makes that decision.
Right.
It's like, if I really am the strongest, then I have to be the one who deposes the other, supposed strongest and takes his place.
Right.
He's got a bit of sense of honor about that.
Yeah.
Which is, a lot better can be said about that than anything that Starscream has ever tried to pull. So
Right. Speaking of Starscream, he's very skeptical of the meteorite, and it might be
Starscream
part
the
of his
skeptic in this episode.
Yeah.
Is fantastic.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that's part of his scientific background, that he's like, I don't think this meteor can be trusted. It's prone to be destroyed. And then he's also like very skeptical of Grimlock, and I don't know if he's just trying to provoke Grimlock or if he's actually worried that Grimlock is going to betray them at any moment.
Yeah.
Which then Grimlock just shoots him.
Yeah. Well, I do love how
he does call him a Autobot slave, which is playing into Grimlock's big fears.
Right.
That he's not a person to
both
opposites.
times that somebody made an assumption about the
motives of Grimlock.
Grimlock's like emotional intelligence or level of IQ. Anytime somebody's made an assumption, an unbased assumption off of that, every single time in this episode, it's resulted in an emotional outburst from Grimlock.
Yes.
Which clearly says a lot about his character.
Right. He's clearly trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
That's why he gets angry. Deep down inside, he still has the sentimental softness of an Autobot slave. I see you've written down Starscream's exact line.
Yeah.
And that's... Grimlock, that is his fear, that he's just seen as a slave.
Right.
And Optimus has done nothing to prove himself against that yet.
Starscream saying sentimental softness of an Autobot slave kind of calls back to Autobot training.
Yeah.
Is that what the Decepticons view Autobot training as? Is like, mercy and protecting and everything like that. Those ideals are part of Autobot training.
Yeah.
So for Grimlock, who's never known anything else, those ideals being instilled as training means that they don't have the emotional weight. He hasn't learned them, he's just been told them.
Right, exactly. Also, speaking of Starscream, I love the snide comment he makes when Megatron then realizes, after they've filled a whole, little field full of energon cubes full of the meteor's power, oh no, they're unstable. And Starscream says, you've picked a wonderful time to notice it. And then all the cubes blow up.
Starscream kind of casually taking
great.
a back seat in this episode to just critique everything.
Yes.
Is great.
Yep. So then the new Dinobots show up. Because the other Autobots think that they can't make it there in time, so Swoop flies Snarl in and just drops him like a bomb.
Yeah.
And the old Dinobots have a fight. They all fight together. The new Dinobots and the old Dinobots. Optimus saves Grimlock when the meteorite explodes, and the Decepticons retreat and the Dinobots repent as the Autobots arrive. Optimus forgives them and takes them back into the fold.
Yeah.
So... Megatron's wallet hurts. He's just like, new Dinobots? There's
more toys to buy.
More toys to buy. And I love that Swoop just drops Snarl in like a bomb.
Yeah, it's a tactical Snarl incoming.
Now, I want to talk about this for just a second. The whole episode
has been a fantastic character study on Grimlock, right? But I cannot help to notice that it has all been geared towards this one moment of just, yeah, boy, dinosaurs versus dinosaurs in a fantastic fight set in this classic sort of Fantasia dinosaur art looking, like, you've got these canyons and this, like, deadly red sunset happening, and there's a meteorite menace, and there's just this desert and all these dinosaurs going at it, fire and flames and explosions, and the meteor blows up, and there's whirlwinds and earthquakes, and the whole thing shifts apart. And no wonder we loved this episode so much. It fits perfectly into that classic dinosaur artistic, vision of this like apocalyptic Cretaceous or Jurassic period, whatever, where it's all misty and volcanoes and stuff.
It's just classic dinosaur.
Yeah,
brawl.
it's just a good beat 'em up. You got the new dinos versus the old dinos.
It feels very like pulpy action sort of thing.
And poor Swoop is just getting beat up all the time, even when like Snarl shoots at or somebody shoots at one dinosaur, it reflects off them and hits Swoop. It's like, poor Swoop.
It is interesting though that here Megatron goads the Dinobots into attacking the new Dinobots.
Yeah, and this is the first time that he's like given a direct command other than having to manipulate them.
Right. And I think it's slightly telling that Grimlock has Optimus and then just chucks him to the side.
Yeah.
To go into the fight and stuff. Yeah. And it
like,
feels...
I'll deal with this later.
Yeah, it feels like I'm sick of being manipulated. I'm sick of having all these people tell me what's going on. I'll get it all out in a fight.
Right. He's like, I'm having to think too hard. Just give me a fight.
Yeah, but then again, it's also another test. These are two new Dinobots. It's basically like being introduced to long lost brother or something. Yeah. And it's like, if I'm going to welcome you into my family...
They're getting phased.
I got to make sure... Yeah.
They're hazed.
They're getting
hazed.
But he's like, you got to go under the test. Where do you fit in the pecking order?
Right.
How strong are you?
Yes.
Am I going to have to hand over leadership to you?
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Right.
And, well, in Snarl's case, it maybe? But
yeah, because Grimlock actually does get beaten down over by the meteorite. He's standing next to it when it's about to explode, and Optimus has been watching this fight the whole time.
Yeah.
Interesting he doesn't try to break it up, but he is waiting for an opportunity. And then he just football tackles Optimus, or Optimus just football tackles Grimlock to the ground when the meteorite explodes, and he saves Grimlock, And this just sets off Grimlock. He finally understands. Everything clicks into place for him,
Right.
And then he gets up and he just berates Megatron verbally. He's like, "You tricked us into fighting the good leader, Optimus Prime." And then just say it with me. Bad Megatron! I love that. And Megatron is in pure terror at this point. He's just like, "Oh crap!"
See the sweat and like Frank Welker's delivery. You can feel it in his voice of just the Decepticons. Retreat.
He just got blown up by a meteor, and now he's going to get absolutely trounced by Grimlock.
And it's really great because
Optimus kind of takes it all in stride. He watches the Decepticons leave. He watches the new the regular Autobots show up, and they're like, "Oh, good, you're still alive." And the classic music is playing. I love how there's this moment of silence, and then the music just kicks in.
Yeah.
And the music is that classic, like, end of the episode, and they're watching the sunset, and everybody's getting back together. And I love that Grimlock, he apologizes and he admits that he's wrong, and that he was jealous of Optimus.
Right. Off of his philosophy, this is the first time that something else has challenged it.
Yeah.
To where, by his view,
he has to reconsider his philosophy.
Yeah, my testing of everybody is the right thing. It's the only thing.
Yeah.
But this is the first time that
jealous of Optimus because he hadn't seen him be tested yet.
Right, and this is the first time that he has the concept of there's something in bots other than physical might
Yes.
that can equal strength.
Yes.
And that's what he tells Megatron about, is that's why he so hard rounds onto Megatron, is that he was presented something that fell in line with his point of view.
Yeah.
And then was disproven and was misdirected by that, and sees how false Megatron was with it. Is that there was no substance to what he said. Yeah. Whereas Optimus let his actions speak, which is what speaks to Grimlock as well.
Yeah.
And it's the first time that the ideal presented to him in Autobot training of self-sacrificial, like, loyalty and commitment finally rings true.
Right.
Which is why he says, I was jealous of you.
Yeah.
Not your position, not the position you held over me. I was jealous of you.
He finally understands what's really been
right. I couldn't pin why you were the strongest.
Yeah.
Until now.
Yeah.
And that's why. Which makes it slightly infuriating to me that Optimus just doesn't really acknowledge it and just says, yeah, the meteorite menace is gone. Let's go home. And he shakes hands with them, of course.
Yeah.
But it still feels very clinical and very objective-oriented.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the seed. That's the seed of now, Grimlock trusts me as a human being now. Or not a human being, but trusts me as a person.
Yeah.
So that has weight now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's he going to say in that moment, you know?
Yeah.
Is he going to give a big speech about friendship or something, you know?
There's also, like a minute left in the episode.
It's
pretty jam-packed.
10 seconds.
Yeah.
There's 10 seconds left. He says, will you forgive me? And he says, the meteorite menace is over. And I think that in that words, Optimus is meaning that the meteorite has also caused the menace of the Dinobots betraying. Right. So he's saying that the menace of everything that's been wrapped up in this episode is being wrapped up. And, you know, it takes a big man to apologize and admit that they were wrong.
Right.
You know, so that's also some true strength from Grimlock.
Exactly.
So I think that Optimus just understands that Grimlock has had character development. And he doesn't need to lecture him at this point.
It just doesn't
because
need to be
he's
said.
had the training. Optimus has, suggested that they're friends. And he just feels like at this point, it doesn't need to be said. Grimlock has said everything that needs to be said. And by acknowledging that, by not acknowledging it, Optimus is giving Grimlock the respect that he's desired. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I get it, you know?
I'm respecting
you. No more needs to be said.
Yeah, I'm respecting you by not holding this over your head.
Yeah, I'm not going to, because,
it's clean slate.
If he did give a big speech about, like, oh, you were wrong, Grimlock, and remember, the power of friendship is always greater than the power of the gun.
Yeah.
Whatever, that was a terrible Optimus imitation. I wasn't even trying to imitate him, but you know what I'm saying. I think that would have cheapened it, and Grimlock would have still been feeling like he was patronized. Right. So I actually think that Optimus's response is a better response in this situation because, number one, he's still on pins and needles. Because he's been beat up by his comrades today, and then he got blown up by a meteor. So to him, I think that in this moment, that's all that needed to be said.
Right.
He understood. That, like, sometimes you don't need to patronize somebody after they've apologized. You just need to pat them on the back and say, all right, good enough, let's go home.
Let's move on.
And he's inviting them home. Maybe
True.
He's not going to put them in the cave this time. Maybe he's going to...
Listen, I'll think about it, but you might be able to get a new little cat litter.
We'll build you a nice orange door for your cave instead of just putting a boulder in front of it.
We'll give you a nice orange door. We'll give Slag something to fight every 15 minutes.
Right. Anyway, so yeah.
But honestly, probably my favorite episode out of all of them.
This
so
one,
far.
Yeah, I'd say this is disregarding the meteor not doing nearly enough damage. This has been the best
when
episode.
it crashed and it exploded.
Yeah, both times. This is a wimpy meteor. Other than that, this is probably the best episode of the 4 we've watched, and maybe one of the best from the ones we've watched to this point.
Yeah. It's even like the fight and everything. Yeah. Like, the Dinobots are just tearing pieces off of each other.
Yeah.
It's just well choreographed. Well done. Brutal.
And it's a well-made episode when even my wife has something to say about it. She was actually concerned about the Dinobots' betrayal in the middle of the episode. I think she kind of likes the Dinobots.
Yeah, who doesn't?
I mean, who doesn't like the Dinobots? They're great, and they have some great episodes too.
Especially when Grimlock wears a tuxedo.
Yes, yeah. Goofy Grimlock is he's a totally different Grimlock than we see here, but maybe
lovable nonetheless.
Maybe that's the Autobots training. He has to go through a whole after Unicron. After he kicks Unicron's butt, he's got to go through a whole nother what do I do now in the peaceful times?
I've been in the barbarian era for so long. I don't know what to do with my life. Right. Have you considered butlering?
Maybe. Well, Wheeljack's dead, so.
Oh.
I was gonna say maybe he just lobotomized them, took the
jeez.
Anyway, and on that grim note, let's go to our segments now.
Yeah.
First up, we have best quotes and weird robot lingo. I think my favorite weird robot lingo is freeze the ailerons off a titanium moosebot.
Yeah, titanium moosebot and maybe boron compressor is
boron compressor is pretty good. I also like Glitchmite sounds terrifying.
Glitchmite's in his data banks.
Yes.
Again.
That sounds horrible.
Lice for your brain.
Maybe that's what scraplets are.
Oh, there you go.
Although scraplets show up in the Marvel comics. I'm trying to remember any other... I'll be reprogrammed with a rivet roller.
There you go.
I love that one.
But I think the ailerons on a moosebot is probably takes the cake.
Though, I don't know. My favorite quote is gotta be... Bad Megatron!
Yeah. Oh, man. It's close.
Yeah.
It's close.
And then there's
Bad Megatron for the quote itself.
Starscream has a lot of...
Ailerons on the moosebot just gives me such vivid visuals.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to have to give it to that.
That'll be the best lingo. Best quote can either be...
Bad Megatron.
Or Hail Him Grimlock.
Yeah.
I just love that grammar. Him Grimlock.
Hail Him Grimlock. He is him.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd have to say Hail Him Grimlock because favorite character, gotta be Grimlock in this one.
Yeah.
So good.
Right.
Sadly, we didn't get more characterization on Snarl or Swoop in this one, but...
Though the ancient ones knew many things.
Oh, they did know many things.
Because it's true.
They did, in fact, know quite a lot.
Okay. Anyway, so, next section. What's your favorite character? In these 4 episodes.
Oh, favorite character? Oh, Grimlock.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Grimlock's got the best arc here. I also really like Brawn.
Brawn. Ooh, that's pretty good. Yeah. I'd say Grimlock just because of the depth of his character.
There's a lot more depth. Brawn is fun, but Grimlock is the best written in these 4 episodes. I also like Skyfire. He's fun.
Skyfire's great.
He's really nice.
Man. Yeah. Oh, it's Grimlock.
It's Grimlock. With Skyfire, quick second. But, no, Brawn's pretty far up there. But between War of the Dinobots and Fire in the Sky, the main characters of those episodes have a really great focus.
Yeah.
All right, so, next section. Favorite errors. This can be animation, sound design, or lore errors.
We went through so many in these.
Yeah.
There's quite a few, but Blue Optimus...
when Blue Optimus
in S.O.S. Dinobots when he's up against the wall.
Yeah.
It's just blue for whatever reason.
I always thought that it was because he was wet still.
Yeah.
And he hadn't dried off yet.
He looks cold.
Yeah, he looks cold. He looks uncomfortable.
He looks a little cold.
Give him a blanket.
Yeah.
Also, Blue Streak transforms backwards, apparently. And this is probably my favorite error, besides Blue Optimus, in War of the Dinobots. You can see, when Optimus says... I'm going to go check on the meteor. You guys finish building the new Dinobots. And then it immediately cuts to Wheeljack and Ratchet revealing the new Dinobots, right? So it's a shot outside the Autobot base. If you look closely at the arc, you can see Optimus leaving the base. Now, this makes no sense timeline-wise, because he literally is talking to Wheeljack, transforms, drives out of the base, right? How is Wheeljack immediately way out on the cliff doing the thing? Unless he transformed, drove around inside the base, got some supplies or something.
Yeah.
Maybe he fueled up on some Energon or something, you know? And then left the base. That's the only way I can explain it. But it's a nice little detail that you can see him leaving the base, but it completely screws with timing.
Yeah. I think it's a nice shot, but I don't even think they were really paying attention to that at all. Because I sure wasn't.
Yeah.
I just think it's a funny little Easter egg. And with that, we're going to go to our final section. The TF Wiki Go Button Trivia Time.
So here,
what do you got?
Well, as we go on to TF Wiki,
let's explain what we're gonna do. So on TF Wiki, which is the Transformers wiki, and it is filled with so much Transformers knowledge. And
sarcasm.
And sarcasm. Yeah, it is a very sarcastic website as well. All the little descriptions underneath the pictures have some funny little thing that they talk about it, whatnot. But on the left, there is a random button page. It's called the Go button, and it'll show you a little picture, and you never know exactly what you're going to get. Actually, some of them show up quite a bit, so you kind of, after you've clicked on them a few times, you know which ones is which. But anyway, so both of us click the Go button until we find something that is interesting, or the page will lead us to something interesting on another page. And they have pages for everything. It's like the Star Wars wiki.
Yeah, it's ridiculously in-depth.
Yeah. Anyway, so what page do you have for us today?
So for me, I was kind of on a little thread about Transformers Cybertron. And it somehow linked over to a franchise that I did not know existed called Brave.
Yeah.
Which is a non-Transformers franchise that Takara and Sunrise created after the Generation 1 anime shows ran their course in Japan.
That would be Headmasters, Master Force, and Victory.
Yeah. And it's a spin-off based off of Transformers, but not really. It kind of started as like corporate distinct Transformers, but then kind of evolved into its own thing. It's very, very Gundam, very like mecha anime-esque. But it's been going since 1990. And the most recent one is in 2023. It's Brave Universe Sword Grader.
Interesting.
But
what's the sort of like vibe of the story?
So Brave franchise has been described as a cross between the Transformers and super robot genre of the late 70s and 80s.
So do the kids pilot the robots, or are they sentient?
Let me
Because that's a big difference between Transformers and a lot of other mecha genre, is that in most mecha anime, the main characters will be the pilots of the really cool robots that you can buy on the toy shelf. But Transformers, the robots themselves are the characters.
Right. Give me just a moment.
And I believe I have stumbled across Brave before. If I'm not mistaken, the first series of toys were actually heavy redecos of the toys from the Transformers Victory line, correct?
So there's a chunk of it that is... there's a lot of toys that were recycled and, changed up from the original line.
Yeah.
That were originally from Transformers, that they were originally Transformers, and then they just slap a couple pieces on there and it'll be good. So the Dinobots are actually repurposed into Brave characters.
Oh, cool.
Snarl is Armorgeist, Slag is Horngeist, Swoop Terrageist, and Sludge is Thundergeist. And these are all each show is kind of like its own thing, it would seem.
Yeah.
Six Shot at one point is got redecoed. And it's really cool. They have a side-by-side of S.O.S from Victory and his counterpart that was retrofitted into Redgeist. And it's almost one-to-one. It's just very animated.
Yeah,
like, it's very angular.
looking.
The proportions on the arms and legs are totally different.
Yeah.
Slight recoloring and everything like that. But yeah, pretty interesting. As far as like the premise of the show, the first one in 1990 is a group of space police led by Ex-Kaiser are chasing after the Geisters, an evil gang of treasure thieves. Upon arriving on Earth, Ex-Kaiser and his team, the Kaisers, house their spirits into vehicles all over Japan to create physical bodies for their energy-based forms. Ex-Kaiser inhabits a car belonging to the Hoshikawa family and befriends a third-grade boy named Kota Hoshikawa. Ex-Kaiser and his allies must unite their powers in order to fight the Geisters and prevent them from stealing Earth's artifacts. So,
Very
space police versus treasure hunters.
Cool.
The most recent one that has a link is a light novel, apparently. But it was 2016.
So it sounds like a brave departure from the norm.
Very much so.
Sorry about that. Anyway, so my page that I got to, it was a go button that had the picture of a word bubble that said, Shiog! And that links to the page Furmanism. Now, Simon Furman, I'll just read the...
This is such a good one.
Simon Furman is one of the more famous writers for Transformer comic books. He swung the Marvel Comics in a new direction after the original writer, Bob Budiansky, left the storyline.
And you said Furman also did the UK comics?
Yes, Furman started with the UK comics and then blended the UK and the United States comics together, the Marvel comics in the 80s. He's been on several IDW comic series as well. Generally, he's like a story director, kind of, but he also will write individual comic arcs sometimes.
He's kind of like one of the writers on the Warhammer 40k
He's
franchise.
he's kind of like the Greg Farsty.
Yeah.
But not for all of Transformers, because there's so much more to Transformers, or there's so much more bulk of media with Transformers than there is of Bionicle.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Furmanism. Transformers writer Simon Furman is infamous among fans for dialogue concepts that are frequently retrod. Such repeated phrases are known informally as Furmanisms. So these are basically just things that, when he's writing a comic book, characters will often say the same sort of line over and over again. And they'll even show up in other media as well that he didn't work on.
Sometimes they get homaged as well.
Right. So Shiog is like a scream that characters do when they get blown up or something. But anyway, various Furmanisms include a short, sharp lesson, like, you will find the nerve center of this bunker and shut down its defenses, while I teach these minicons a short, sharp lesson in discipline. Think of it, Optimus, as a short, sharp lesson. You need a short, sharp lesson, Decepticon. A short, sharp lesson.
They are
title
extensive.
Of main story in comic issue. Yeah, anyway. This page just has a list of examples and stuff.
What's your favorite?
A whole world of pain. All the dirty jobs. Can I do less? Cannot. Will not. Die screaming.
I don't remember that one.
Down to earth. Literally. Fight and die. It can be hurt. It is over. Finished. It never ends. Like some predatory bird. I think that might be one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
Like some predatory bird. That shows up in a lot of the little yellow boxes, not the dialogue box, not the dialogue like word bubbles, but the little boxes. Never did want to live forever. That's a pretty good one. I like that.
Yeah.
No, you're dead! Power beyond measure. Reap the whirlwind!
I don't ever remember that one.
Yeah,
but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Surplus to requirements. The worst case of indigestion it's ever had. That's a classic Transformer line right there. Time I made a stand. Time I wasn't here.
2 different times.
Yeah, they're like the reverse.
Yeah.
Well and truly. What are you playing at? What chance do we have? You won't believe the things I can do now!
You won't believe it!
And then also sound effects like spoom and shiag.
Truly left a really, really phenomenal impact on like the Transformers franchise. He's gone on to do a lot with it, and yeah, very nice.
Yeah. So Furmanisms are a lasting impact on Transformers, and so are the Dinobots. And Jetfire, Skyfire to a lesser degree, but, you know, having characters that switch sides sometimes and grapple with the moral gravity of Transformers is another thing.
Yeah,
that,
there was a lot of depth to these episodes.
Yeah.
That some was intentional, some not. But
yeah.
I think it was rather cool.
Yep, and I think that is where we're going to end this episode. Next time, we are covering episodes 11 through 14 of Generation 1. The Ultimate Doom, Part 1 through 3, and Countdown to Extinction.
These are good. These are really good.
Well...
To my memory.
when it's not filler material.
Well, yeah, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it. So, join us again next time.
Indeed.
On BroBots in Disguise.
We hope to combine our forces into a combiner form of this podcast. And that did not work. No, it didn't. It really didn't.
Especially since we're not doing combiners yet. But we'll get to that eventually.
I will kill you.
But you'll get to that eventually.
Anyway,
end. We're done.
Anyway, y'all, get out of here. We love you.
Go home. Go do something more productive with your life than listening to us.
But thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Nice.
We appreciate it. Be safe.
And
roll out.
Roll out.
That's my vocal warm up.